In this video, I'm going to be sharing my note-taking strategy that's useful and efficient and will help you get those good grades, whether that be in high school or in university. Let's get right into it. The first thing to do is to only use a few supplies. This means I generally use a maximum of 2 pens, one black pen for general purpose writing and one red pen for any errors and corrections, as well as in some cases I might use one extra highlighter just for highlighting some very important points or titles. All the videos I've seen on note-taking just go on and on about being neat, using different color highlighters, and just using too many supplies in general. We have to remember that notes are for the purposes of enhancing our own studying and improving our grades, and not for the purposes of creating pretty little booklets. If you want to create pretty art posters, I'd recommend going back to primary school and joining the arts and crafts class. The benefits of using just a few supplies are, firstly, it saves a lot of time. You're not constantly switching from your highlighter to your pen, from one color pen to another color pen, from that color pen to another highlighter. You just have 2 or 3 writing tools and that's it, and that's all you actually need. It ensures that you're focused on writing your notes and actually remembering and learning what it actually is, and not too distracted with making your notes too neat and too pretty. You are concentrating on just writing down the useful and important stuff into your actual notes. What this means is I generally avoid any fancy titles when I'm making my notes. I don't use the ruler for lines, I just make a fold in the middle of the paper. I don't need multiple highlighters to turn this into a coloring in competition, and there's no need for correction tapes, as all it does is slow you down. All you have to do is grab your pen and put a line through the thing that you want to cross out or want to remove from your notes. There's no need for any boxes around your notes or any formatting, and then at the end, once it's all done, you don't need any special sticky tape or colored tape to put it all together. All you need to do is one staple and that's it. Combine your notes all together. In addition to saving you so much time and making sure you're a lot more focused when you're actually making your notes, it also saves you a bit of money, as you don't need to go out and buy all this unnecessary stationery that's not actually useful for improving your notes. As well, if you were going to school or going to university and you'd have to carry all this material in your bag, you'll be saving a bit of weight and less pressure on your shoulders, as all you have to do is carry 2 pens and 1 highlighter for your notes. So for me, I have the black color rollerball pen, which is my go-to as it's so much faster and so much more superior to all the other pens out there. What I do is I use this black pen for general text and pretty much 90% of what I'm actually writing. And then what I do is for the red pen, after class or after the teachers talked about it, I might use the red pen to add in any points that I missed, or important things that I didn't understand, or things that are very useful and likely to pop up in the exam that I wasn't able to get right the first time. And for my highlighter, I'll explain when and how I use that in my next point, which is to try and use a foundation for your notes. For example, what I generally try and do is, in high school, I would use my teacher's notes or any booklets that they provided for us, and kind of like our workbooks that we do in class, as that generally had most of the information that I need for the exam, and I could just build my notes on top of that on the same pieces of paper. In uni, what I'd use is generally the lecture slides, or in cases where the professor has provided extra notes, I might use that. But with the lecture slides, what I'd do is I'd print them out beforehand before the lecture that I attend or watch at home later on. I would put 4 lecture slides on each page back to back, so that means I could fit 8 lecture slides on one piece of paper, and I'd make sure before I printed that, I would remove the unnecessary slides. For example, like the contents page and any ask me any questions pages or prepare for next tutorial and things like that. I'll just only keep the important information that I need to study off in the actual exams. If neither of these work for you, you can always use a friend's notes from the year before, or a senior student's who probably made notes when they did their class. And as long as it's succinct and covers most of the information as well, you can try and use these and just handwrite notes over the top of them to build your own personal notes. So when you're in class and when the teacher's talking and saying something very important, if it's there already on your notes, then what you can do is just grab your highlighter and just highlight that section, or put a star next to it saying it's very important and it's likely to pop up in the exam. Or if it's something you don't understand and want to clarify in the future, then that's another thing that you can highlight. And for additional things that might help your own understanding of something that the lecturer is explaining, for example, if they give you an example on a certain certain concept, then you might want to write that down using your black pen or your red pen. And then later on, when you're studying those notes before the final exam, you'll have a much better understanding, as you will remember that example they went through in class, which you've coincidentally just written down. So the main benefit of this is that you're writing a lot less than if you were making your notes from zero or from scratch. It saves you so much time, as 80% or 90% of the notes are already there for you, and there's no point writing down something you already understand or very simple concepts that you might already know. Because you're saving so much time writing things down, especially during class time, you only need to focus on the certain bits that you aren't sure about, or things that are very difficult for you and you don't understand, or very important bits that are likely to pop up in the exam. This allows you to focus on the majority of the content because you already have it there in the notes in front of you. You don't need to be writing it down as well. You can just be concentrating and thinking and trying to understand that, instead of learning it for the first time just before the exam and understanding whatever was being taught, you were too busy writing things down and trying to make a note of it, whereas you could already have that information in front of you with the foundation of the notes. And as such, it allows you to concentrate on the more important things, for example, what's going to be in the exam paper that the teacher might be saying, and in critical information that you might not remember otherwise. Now, just before I go on to the next tip, if you have found something useful or something interesting in the first two tips, then feel free to give this video a like down below, and also you might consider subscribing to this channel to see more videos on note-taking and study tips, which is what this channel is all about. So my third tip is to consider your future self when you are making these notes. You'll be the one who's actually studying these notes in the future. So it's very important that you be concise and don't add too much irrelevant stuff, as you don't want to be in a situation the night before the exam and you just have too many unnecessary things in the notes that you have to study. With the foundation, what you can do is you can cross off any sections of notes or put a tick next to it saying that you've pretty much understood the concept, and before the next exam you don't need to worry too much about that section, and you can save your time and move on to something else that you were struggling with a lot more. A trick I like to do is I like to use thin pieces of paper and smaller writing, as this way, because my notes are more packed together in what appears a thinner pile of notes and much less paper, then it tricks myself into thinking, oh, there aren't too many notes that I have to study for and I can get this done, and it's actually possible to do. So this way you're not going to overwhelm yourself with too much notes to study, which by making it seem like there isn't much to do, and you will be able to definitely get through it. As I mentioned in tip 1, I also like to fold my piece of paper in half. This way I have 2 columns for writing notes or answering questions, and with a simple fold I don't need to waste time using a ruler and marking everything out. I can see the crease line very clearly and it's very straight, and as such it can fit more information onto a single page and therefore make it seem like there's less that you actually need to study and make it seem so much more manageable and doable. If you're doing an exam later on where formulas are required, you might want to check which formulas are given to you in the exam and which formulas you aren't given and therefore you might need to memorize. This way, in your notes, you only need to worry about writing down formulas that you have to memorize, and the notes that you are given, you can just forget about those, as they'll be given to you in the final exam in the form of a formula booklet. A small bonus tip is, with the current situation and COVID, there'll probably be a lot more open exams and online exams that you'll be doing. So what I recommend is, instead of focusing on too much content and memorizing things that are in the syllabus, what you should be worrying about is the application and applying yourself to harder questions that will probably be tested. As if it was just memorization based, you would probably be able to just Control F the notes that are given in the lectures or something like that and easily find the answer without needing to memorize anything. My fourth tip is to focus on your understanding and ability through practice rather than relying too much on your notes. Active recall and practice is a lot better than note taking, which is really just putting the information and writing it down on a piece of paper. Whereas with practice and active recall, by attempting questions and things like that, you are forced to think about the problem and the concepts that you'll probably be needing to apply, which therefore puts that information, instead of the piece of paper, directly into your head. For me, I generally use notes as a safety net to make sure I have a full grasp of pretty much all the concepts that I need for the exam, and I use it for initial review, just 1 or 2 hours maximum, to go over everything in the course, and then I'll be moving on to my main exam technique, which is practice, practice, practice. This is especially useful for subjects where there's a lot of application questions in the exam, for example in maths and engineering, but it's also relevant for other content-heavy subjects as well, such as economics. For example, with my engineering notes, what I like to do is I like to keep the notes to just mainly a few formulas, and more importantly 90% of it is just my answers to the problems that I've attempted and then solutions to those. If, for example, I got an answer wrong, or if I didn't know how to do a question, I might write down in red pen what my error was, and then I write down the solution in red pen as it's something important because I didn't know how to do it, or I might have made a critical mistake that I definitely don't want to do again in the exam. Hopefully you can take out at least one or two things from these tips that you can apply to your own notes. And question of the day is, I'm curious to know what you guys think. Is it important to have pretty and neat notes to study off of, or do you guys prefer my method of having plain and simple notes to write and also study off of? Let me know down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to give it a thumbs up and then subscribe to this channel to not miss out on my future study content where I give hacks and strategies on how you can study more efficiently and effectively. As always, take care, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.